if you allow me to indulge myself a little bit, I'm going to take you through the scene. Jesus is the interviewer. You all have gone for a job interview, you want to look the best, you have your resumes really made up good, and then sometimes you use ChatGPT to help you out with helping the resume be tailored to what the job is, right? As long as it is true, there's nothing wrong with it. You're just using a tool. But if you fail for something, then that will be shown in your work. But how would the resume of these disciples look like? So Jesus has put an ad out that he's going to appoint disciples on this day, come to this place. So there is a group of people that are gathered, and there are 12 of them that are outside. And the first person comes in and he says, "Hey Peter, tell me a little bit about yourself." So Peter says, "Jesus, I'm an expert fisherman, and I have this real passion that I never give up. I fish all night, even if I don't catch any fish. I never give up. And by the way, I'm also good with the sword. Like, I can take off a person's ear with one lock. And I'm extremely zealous. You need a man to be able to jump off the boat and walk? I'm that man. But I have one thing. My weakness is that when there is fear of men, then I sometimes end up denying the truth, even when I know that it is the truth." So Jesus writes down a few points, and he writes down impulsive, potential denial. So he tells Peter, "Can you go back and call those two brothers, the sons of thunder?" So James and John come in. As James and John walk in, they say, "Jesus, hey, we are called the sons of thunder." And Jesus is like, "I know, I was the one who gave you that name." And James says, "I am just fiery. I'm so zealous." And John says, "Jesus, you really should have called us the sons of fire. You shouldn't have called us the sons of thunder. Thunder makes all the noise, but fire, it consumes." Like this one time, when we had to go to this village and we saw these Samaritans, and the Samaritans didn't want to actually welcome us, we came up with a master plan. And the master plan is, Elijah? And she's like, "Yeah, I was there before him. Elijah? He commanded fire from heaven." So we said, "Lord, maybe we also command fire from heaven." So we really should be the sons of fire. And our weakness, sometimes we sleep when we ought to be praying. So Jesus writes down, fiery, sleepy, seeking destruction of men. He sends the brothers out and says, "Send me Andrew." So Andrew comes in. Andrew is the brother of Peter. And Peter, is impulsive, and he's brash, and he's bold, and he speaks before he thinks. And so Andrew says, "Jesus, I'm not like my brother. I'm not impulsive. I'm actually quite quiet and reserved. But I'm really good at marketing. I'm excellent in marketing because I connect people. I bring people to you. Because in fact, I brought Peter to you. My weakness is that I sometimes overanalyze things a little bit. Like, for example, if you have to feed like 5,000 people, 5 loaves and 2 small fish, I belittle God because I look at the sufficiency of my resources. And sometimes I don't trust in it. However, you know what? Because I'm so good at marketing and I can manage resources, you should make me the resource manager and you should make me the marketing director. And Jesus writes down, needs a little more faith. He sends Andrew out and in comes Philip. Philip, tell me a little bit about yourself. Just to be clear, I'm not Philip the evangelist. He comes later in the book of Acts, Acts chapter 8. So I'm not Philip the evangelist, but I'm really good with finance. For example, I can do the math. 200 penny worths or denarii, so 200 days of wages, is not sufficient to be able to feed 5,000 people. So if you want to do anything with supply chain management and inventory management, I'm the guy because I can help you out with restocking. I can be your inventory manager. Jesus writes down, needs more faith. Philip goes out, comes in, Bartholomew. Bartholomew comes in and says, "Hey, Jesus, you can call me Nate because my other name is Nathaniel." And you know what? I'm an extremely observant person. I observe the finer details in things. I observe people. I observe land. I know the geography of this land. So I am so good at knowing and reading people. And my favorite place is to actually hang under the fig tree. And I want to tell you something. You want to hire somebody into your ministry? Avoid people from Nazareth. Because can anything good come out of Nazareth? And Jesus writes down, judgmental, ethnocentric, possibly someone who can cause regionalism. And as he's going, he's like, "Don't forget me, I can be your outreach director." Comes in Matthew. "Matthew, what do you have to say about yourself?" "You know, I'm really, really good at accounting. The CPA, I can calculate the taxes that are due. But I'm not just the local CPA, I'm also the IRS guy because I collect taxes. So I actually go and collect taxes from the Jews for the Romans. Because I do it for the Romans, there are people in this crowd, including one guy that is sitting outside. His name is Simon the Zealot. He's kind of, I'm not sure if you really should interview him, but this Simon the Zealot, he really doesn't like me at all because I collect taxes for the Romans. And so he calls me a traitor of the Jews." And Jesus writes down, "Traitor of the Jews." And so Matthew walks out, and in comes Thomas. "Thomas, hey Thomas, what would you like to tell me about you?" "Jesus, are you really asking that question?" "Yeah. Do you really want to know what I'm going to say, or have you already decided who you're going to bring into your team?" "Thomas, no, I really am looking for the people I want to bring in." "Are you really sure? Because see, I kind of have a problem doubting things. They call me I'm a doubter, but I'm actually a decisive diplomat. The thing is that I don't let just people pull wool over my eyes. Instead, I need proof. I need evidence. I need to be able to see things in order to be able to believe it." And Jesus writes down, "Doubter needs more faith." So out goes Thomas, and in comes James, the son of Alphaeus. Now James, when he comes in, he says, "Hey, you know what? There's not much I want to speak about myself because I'm not really a boaster." Don't we do that sometimes? We boast in our humility. We boast how good we are by our boasting about what we don't want to boast about. James says that there is a guy called Mark, and in his book in chapter 15 verse 40, he actually, I don't like him very much because he calls me James the Less. But you know what? I can do a lot more. I'm that person who you would want on your team because I can do more with less, even though he calls me less. You know what I'm talking about? In companies, they ask you to do more with less. And James is like, I'm the one that will fit that profile. I can do more with less. Mark my words. And pun intended, and he kind of has a sheepish grin at Jesus. And Jesus writes down, low self-esteem. So as he goes out, he says, go call that guy. His name is Thaddeus. Many people don't know about Thaddeus at all. So call this guy Thaddeus. So Thaddeus walks in and Thaddeus goes, my name is actually Judas, but I'm not the man from Iscariot. So I'm not that scheming guy that's outside. I'm actually much better than him. I'm really, really curious, and I ask a lot of questions. Like John in chapter 14 of 22, he actually records and he says, I had to ask for the revelation that needs to manifest in Messiah. He writes down, he wants revelation, has difficulty accepting the word of God. So James goes out, and in comes Simon the Zealot. As he walks in, he actually walks in interestingly with a little knife, a dagger. Because the Zealots in the time of the Romans were called dagger men. They were these revolutionaries. They did not like the Romans at all. They were the ones that fought against the Romans because they were nationalists. They were proud of their heritage of being a Jew. in today's word, they would say they were patriotic for their Jewish nation. And so Simon comes in and he's like, I just want to let you know, you want a head of a Roman or two? I'm the man. I could be your bodyguard. No one will come close to you because they call me a rebel, but in essence, I am a revolutionary. And so Jesus writes down, rebel. And in comes Judas Iscariot after Simon the Zealot leaves. As Simon is walking and going out, he looks at Matthew, the tax collector. Matthew is collecting taxes for the Romans, and he's got a knife in his hand. So Matthew runs to the restroom so he could hide for some time. And Judas takes his seat. You want someone taking care of your finances? I'm your man. See, they even call me the money magician because I can make money disappear from the money purse, the treasury. And, you know, the way I look at it is like the less money there is in the temple, the less taxes you have to pay, right? And so, that's me. But I can take care of your finances. I'm also really good because I can do this whole ROI calculation, the return on investment. I'll tell you something, Jesus. We shouldn't be spending money with the poor people. Because giving alms to the poor people, what a waste of money that is. You don't get anything in return. However, you take that money and invest it, you can do so much more for the poor. Sometimes don't we think like that? Where those who need it most are the ones that are deprived. We think in our stratagems and our strategies of life that we can run the organization or the body of Christ and do things our way. And so in that context, he says, I can be your treasurer. And Jesus writes down, thief, potential betrayer. They all walk out. They're waiting for the analysis to be done. Jesus writes a few more points. He goes out and he meets them and he says, you guys are a bunch of misfits. There's nothing special about you. Completely ordinary. There's nothing that actually makes you qualified to serve in my ministry. You guys are not saints. You're scoundrels. You are impulsive, deniers, betrayers. You have little or no faith. You have low self-esteem, traitors, rebel, thieves. You all are exactly the ones I want in my ministry. Think about that. Mark 3, verse 13 says, he went up from the mountain, called to him those whom he wanted. The Greek root for that word is the ones he desired, the ones he wished for. If any of these characters had come for a HR interview today, either in our churches or in our corporations, none of them would have qualified to be in service. And these are the people that Jesus wanted. You know why that gives me hope? I don't know about you, with which disciple you related to, but I can relate to pretty much every one of them. I deny Jesus with my life. Low self-esteem. I have problems with faith. When things don't go my way, I'm like, Lord, where are you? What's happening? I betray him by having a hypocritical lifestyle outside, in the church on a day, doing things that look nice and righteous, and then going outside and living a duplicitous lifestyle, the one that Jesus would say, you brood of vipers. I don't know about you, how strong your faith is. I calculate my resources before I can give to either the ministry or to others who are in need. I check and see, 200 denarii, 200 days of wages, not sufficient. I don't know about you, but I know that I will relate to every one of these good news is He desires you. He wants you. He called them whom He wanted. What a beautiful thought that is.